Hello everyone. So yeah, today we have a very special guest with us. So we have Sachin with us today. He's a VP of sales engineering team at BigCommerce. Welcome, Sachin.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So yeah, we were just wrapping up the BigSummit, and it was a pretty great event. What
Big
do you think?
event.
Yeah. How do you think about like what kind of the new things BigCommerce launched, and any kind of thing you want to highlight some of those things?
I think this was one of our best events so far, and what I'm most excited about this event, you've been to many partner summits and big summits in the past. This was the first time we had customers and prospects in addition to our partners coming to Austin. Thank you for Cronix to making your trip to Austin and bringing customers and prospects there as well. I think what was most energizing, I always loved our partner summits because, as an employee, you see deals, you see demos, you see implementations, and you see a very narrow scope of what's going on in the BigCommerce world until these type of events happen where agencies and tech partners that have truly invested and committed to our platform show up.
Yeah.
And through dinners and conversations, you get to see this outside of BigCommerce world and view of why they believe in BigCommerce, right? So it's a little bit of an energy boost every time I've attended and participated in these events. And this time was different because it wasn't just the internal family of BigCommerce, which is our platform and our partners, but we had good guests, right?
Yeah,
we had prospects and
definitely.
customers, and it was interesting to have those conversations because you have customers who are already using your platform, and you have prospects who are not sure if they want to use your platform. So anyway, all around the energy I think was 10x because of that combination of partners and customers. So yeah, it was great. It's been a great event.
Yeah, I think this is what the feedback I got as well. Like some of the leads and the prospects which I were working with, and they were able to connect with other BigCommerce customer. They were able to see what kind of a tech stack they're using. So it was pretty.
I mean, I won't name the names, but you and I had one prospect that I remember. We met with them and together, and I think in his own words, he was like, he wasn't 100% sure before coming in, and it's not like he saw a different demo or he saw a new feature that didn't know BigCommerce had. I think his words were, I got to meet BigCommerce people and BigCommerce community, and I think this is the right platform for us. And I think that was really rewarding for me to hear from him, because this is the type of stuff you can't replicate in a sales cycle.
Yeah.
Right? We can't bring Travis on stage and Sharon Gee on stage and Rick Watson on stage, and and all of that cannot be replicated. And I think I hope in the future we bring more and more prospects, so they can have this type of experience.
Yeah, I think he was very excited about it after meeting you over there, and
Did he sign?
He will. I think he's pretty much there already.
Good.
So I think after talking to you, he was very much confident that he will be going with that. Yeah.
To me, entrepreneurship is very admirable. I haven't done it. I've done it through being part of early stage startups instead of kind of starting my own startup, and I think I've really enjoyed being the guiding force and being part of those journeys to take companies and sales engineering teams for that matter from very early stage to high growth. That's kind of what fills my cup to see. And your journey is amazing. I've seen you grow up professionally, and you grow your brand within e-commerce. So I'm happy to be part of that journey and hope to continue to see you succeed.
Thank you. Well, you talked about sales engineering. I know you have mentoring some of the sales engineers as well. Like you have a School of Sales Engineering program as well. So would you like to tell us about that as well?
Yeah, I think School of Sales Engineering is similar to how you and I started to engage, because to me it's all about bringing the years of experience and expertise that I've had at this stage in career is, how can I bring paid forward, right? There were mentors along the way for me that I had to seek. They weren't easy to come by. I think people just get busy as we are later in our careers, and I was fortunate enough to have 3 or 4 people that, even though they didn't know the context that I was working in, I think being able to it's like professional therapy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would just have a coffee or lunch with them, and there were things that I was struggling with that I was just discuss with them.
Mm-hmm.
And they all had a certain way of, because they knew me, they all had a certain way of saying the right words or challenging me in the right way. Like they weren't always telling me what I wanted to hear, but they were telling me what I should be hearing. And I think I kind of give credit to a lot of my success to those informal mentors along the way that, helped me overcome a lot of challenges that I might not have if I didn't have their guidance. So I think I started the School of Sales Engineering with that same mindset of, there are probably a lot of sales engineering leaders, entrepreneurs, business leaders that could benefit from my engagement, right? It's not like I have the answers. I've never had the answers for you either, but it's being a sounding board, being an advocate, being somebody who's committed to your success, right? So that's kind of what I bring to our conversations. And through School of Sales Engineering is, I would hear from, challenges from other SC leaders that are new into the leadership and what they're struggling with, and if I can provide any guidance. I think the other reason I started School of Sales Engineering was also, I've been at BigCommerce almost 9 years now, and there is a level of tunnel vision that you get in terms of this is how we do sales engineering at BigCommerce, and this is how we have done sales engineering, not just at BigCommerce, but e-commerce in general. Mm-hmm. As I engage with other leaders from School of Sales Engineering, I get to hear some other nuances, right? Sometimes it's validation that, hey, the way we're doing sales engineering at BigCommerce is really good, right?
Yeah.
Our AE to SE ratio is really good. Our win rates are really good. Or sometimes I learn from coaching these leaders that, oh, that's really interesting how you're working with services organization. Maybe we should implement that at BigCommerce too. So it's a combination of me giving back, and it's a combination of me learning. Same with you.
Yeah.
I have never started a journey, of starting an agency, but every time you and I engage, I'm learning from you on what does it take to start from the ground up and grow it the way you guys are growing it.
Yeah, this is what I like about teaching, to be honest. Like I have basically trained a lot of developers, and we do that as well. Like we provide developers to the agencies and brands. So what I like about developers, like when they ask questions, some of the things which I don't get to do development so much these days, but I do personally make sure I have some time dedicated to work with some of the junior developers, provide them training on those kind of subjects, some of the subjects like development subjects kind of stuff. So I think I really enjoy that, because it's when they question things, then you have to do some kind of research, basically provide your experience, or you also get to learn new things as well, because they are doing the theoretical knowledge learning as well, and you are not up to date always on the latest subjects. So when they're ask some of the concept about the new things happening in the CSS or HTML, things like that. So it
keeps you challenged,
right? Keeps me challenged.
Like, I'm not coding, but I still gotta stay stay on the cutting edge. I mean, even things like what we all shared at the summit, Catalyst stuff, right? Like when I look at, I have a software development background. I have an electrical engineering undergrad. I have a master's of software engineering and an MBA, and but I haven't written code in a long time. And I think some of the recent developments that we've seen at BigCommerce in terms of going from very, very SaaS focused to now SaaS plus development focused, right? We're not going all the way into, right, SaaS is not important, open source is important, right? That's the other extreme. I think the balance that we have, that we're bringing with Catalyst, is there's a role developers play, there's a role customization and custom development plays in solving complex problems that just SaaS can't. Because I remember earlier in BigCommerce days, to your point, as an SC, right, when I was doing demos, like 7-8 years ago, when we used to very proactively compete against Magento, it was really an open source versus on-prem versus SaaS equation, right? And I remember our tone was very anti-development. It was almost like you don't want developers in this mix, right? Because they slow things down, or it's too expensive, right? Or it takes too many resources to do what you could do with BigCommerce promotions, with point and click. And I think we've come a long way on it. It's not like we were anti-developers, it's just that we didn't include developer value into the mix. And we've come a long way with Mock and with everything, where it is a right balance, right? You don't want the marketing, the chief marketing officer who wants to just go create a new landing page or brand to be, scared of developers or to not include. but how do they work in synergy is the important. So to your point, it's sometimes you get into these deep technical stuff, like it's a way to kind of keep yourself sharp, right? And learn. And I'm a lifelong learner, man. So anytime I can learn something, it's important to me.
Yeah, this is great actually, And well, now we're talking about learning. I think you're releasing a book as well. So would you like to tell us about the book?
It's I believe in affirmations, right? So for the longest time, I've had this thought about writing something. Honestly, I'm not a writer and I'm not a reader, right? I'm also not a podcaster, but I'm somehow the universe is having me do all three of those things. So so the concept of the book really came about. I've had this concept for a long time, and I think I've kind of done little bit of writing through LinkedIn posts and articles. So throughout my career, if I found that there was something new we were doing as an SC team, or I was doing as an SC leader, I would just create a quick post about it on LinkedIn, and most of the times I would get really good comments back from the audience to say this was helpful. So the concept of the book was, there are so many amazing books written for, if you are a sales engineer, how do you become a better sales engineer, right? There's Demo to Win, right? That gives you foundationals around how to deliver best demos, right? There's Mastering Technical Sales, which talks, a lot about becoming a trusted advisor and becoming, mastering the technical sales profession. But what I've found is, I've worked with sales reps throughout my career, and SCs work with sales reps throughout their careers. Nobody's teaching the sales reps on how to optimize their sales engineering resources, right? And that's the gap that I've seen in the industry. There's not a lot of knowledge around it. There's not a lot of written around it. So that's what the book is about. It's about teaching sales reps to learn about their SCs better, and the more understanding you have of what sales engineers are, what their career paths look like, what inspires them, what motivates them, why they became a sales engineer, how they became a sales engineer. I feel all of that, the more sales reps know about that, the more they can get out of their sales engineers. So that's what the book is about.
Yeah, I know we have discussed in the past as well, like regarding some of the stories that you feel very inspired by, like how they transition from one kind of industry to another industry, and in a sales engineer as well. And would love to know a little bit of some of your favorite stories, and that one aspect. The another aspect is some kind of a career path, like if someone is who's graduating, like what do you think, what kind of things they should study or learn or experience, what kind of internship they should go for to
what they should study is they should go to an undergraduate or a master's program in sales engineering. Except it doesn't exist. There is no university that I know of that has that program, right? But when you look at, there's at least 100,000, if not more, official professional sales engineers just in the US alone, right? I don't have an undergrad in sales engineering or sales engineering leadership, but I've been doing it for so long. I think the podcast really kind of was inspired from the question you're asking me is, how do people fall into this profession? And the purpose of the podcast, which I think I've done about 15 episodes so far, and man, what amazing journeys. I'm inspired listening to these podcasts and the type of stories that come out. We've had pastry chef turn into sales engineer. We've had chemist who's the author and founder of Great Demo, Peter Cohen, started his journey as chemist, and now he's been a sales engineering legend. We have a math teacher, somebody on our team, on our BigCommerce SC team, who made his way from teaching high school math and computer science to now one of our best SCs on our team, right? So it is inspiring to hear these stories, and one of the purposes of why I invest my personal time in doing these podcasts is because I do feel that I feel fortunate and blessed to have fallen into sales engineering, right? I was, like I said, undergrad in computer engineering, started my career in firmware at IBM here in Austin. I was doing AIX development, hardcore operating system level stuff, and I was realizing that I wasn't really the best at it. It wasn't my passion, so I was unsatisfied. Even though I was good at it, it wasn't fulfilling my passion. And so I left IBM to join a very, very early stage startup called Convio. It was a CRM for nonprofits back then. And, as an integration consultant, because that was like the closest to my technical need, but the CRM system integrated to a lot of the ERPs that nonprofits had. And one of the most common objection that came up in our sales cycles back then was, if this nonprofit decides to use the CRM for fundraising, online marketing, how will the data go from this into their ERP, right? So I was the integration consultant who was doing all of this stuff behind the scenes. I reported into services. But because this was the most common objection, some of our sales reps started to bring me into their top opportunities to say, hey, don't take our word for it. Listen to Sachin, who does this to our other customers, and ask him questions on how complicated this is, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I fell into it. Like I was part of services organization that started to come into prospect conversations to help them feel comfortable that it's something we have solved for, right? You don't have to be scared of it, right?
Yeah.
And then the VP of sales at that time said, well, we're only bringing you into select conversations. Do you want to do this like all the time? And I was like, yeah, I enjoy doing it, So I became the first ever SC the company had, and that's how I fell into it. So the purpose of the podcast is the stars aligned for me, right? I wish there was somebody in my network who was an integration consultant who had taken that journey into sales engineering, that I had proactively sought this profession out, because once I was in it, I was in my swim lane, right? I loved it. Everything about me was perfectly aligned with it. So I don't want a lot of pastry chefs and chemists and math teachers to have all the stars align and fall into it. I want them to be aware that if they have what it takes to be a sales engineer, they should be pursuing that as a profession.
But from a sales engineer perspective, should they have some kind of a technical knowledge about the the platform, things like that, before they get into
not necessarily before. What's amazing, take me as an example, right? I remember when I was interviewing for BigCommerce, sadly I might have even said this in the interview process when I asked what's your e-commerce experience, and I probably said, well, I use Amazon as a consumer. That's e-commerce, right? And obviously once I was on the job, I was like, e-commerce is complex, right? And as an outsider, you don't comprehend the complexity that you guys deal with, right? Agency partners in taxes and shipping and cross-border and promotions and everything, right? Consumers are kind of blinded from all that complexity because it's all about customer experience, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say you have to have the deep knowledge of kind of what you're planning on selling. I think what's common thread with all people that become sales engineers is intellectual curiosity, right? So again, do you have to have a computer science degree? No. A math teacher, pastry chef that I mentioned, they didn't go to undergrad for computer science. But what comes up in these interviews when I do these podcasts is there's something about their personality. Like even as a math teacher, he could very easily start teaching computer science classes because they gave him the curriculum and they were like, well, the computer science teacher just left. Can you teach it? And what he did, he spent the weekends just reading up the curriculum, and somehow he was able to understand it, right? And so as a sales engineer, I don't need to compete with our engineers. I would fail if I competed with our engineers on how well they know e-commerce. I just need to understand enough that I can help solve the problem that our prospects have, right?
Yeah.
So to your point, I don't think having e-commerce knowledge is required, but the moment you become and join BigCommerce, you better be passionate about solving problems with e-commerce. You better be learning all the time, right? You better be understanding how our competition works. What are the boundaries of our platforms, and which boundaries can be stretched and how, and what can be customized, what should not be customized, right? These are all the things that if you have the passion and technical curiosity to learn, then you'll be a great sales engineer in any profession.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like people confuse solution architects with the sales engineer as well.
Yeah.
I have done some of the when I was leading the development teams, and I was handling the sales calls as well. And I can say that definitely when you bring the technical teams who can provide some of the answer right away kind of
Yeah.
stuff, it does solve the problem. So, but I think the solution architect is a bit more like a technical when the project is
Yeah.
already signed and everything. Then you're basically designing the whole system. Whereas sales engineer is like a pre signing kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, can you provide a bit more light on that?
Our profession has, one of the challenges our profession has is every company calls their SEs differently,
Yeah,
right? There's
yeah.
pre-sales, there's solution architects, there's solutions engineers, solution consultants, right? So there's not a unified title, but I think the way you're describing it, I will tell you there's a lot of similarities but a lot of differences in what in e-commerce term. Take our company, right? We have solution architects and we have sales engineers, right? It doesn't mean one is smarter or more technical than the other, right? Both have to have much deeper understanding of what is possible, how things can be complex, things can be solved, and what solutions look like, right? So they both have to be very solution oriented, right? But there is a difference in when you're solving for problems in a sales cycle versus you're solving for problems in implementation cycle, right? And I'll tell you the difference is also in who you're solving it for, right? Buyers don't, like, if you truly take a solution architect, right, an implementation person, you know from your experience, right? A prospect asks you a question about how will this be solved, and if you start whiteboarding the heck out of like this is exactly how we're going to do, they'll probably stop you and say we're not there yet. Mentally, we're not there yet.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
I agree.
Amandeep, we just want to understand right now. Give us the answer. Can it be done? Because we're still deciding if we're going to go with your platform, because the other two platforms are also saying they can do it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So even though you have the ability to go deep, you may not want to because it's not the right time or the right audience, right?
Yeah.
But I do think, in terms of kind of what inspires somebody to be a solution architect versus more of a sales engineer who's more pre-sales, is there's a different level of persuasion, right? There's a different level of approach to solutioning, right?
Yeah.
That you have to take. And I don't mean this in a negative way, but there's more of dreaming, the art of the possible in sales cycle, right? And there's more of a reality in implementation, right? And that's okay. Like there's neither side is wrong or right, but that's totally okay because that's the journey of a customer, right? Like you don't, even when you're buying a house, right? You don't want, your realtor should not be talking about how often the HVAC's going to break, right? But that's the reality. The HVAC is going to break, right? In the middle of the summer, right? And you're going to have to call somebody emergency and you have to pay. But as a buyer, if that's what your realtor is talking about, you're never going to buy a house. You're going to continue to rent, right? As you should have, so I think it's to me, both play a very, very important role. Neither is better or stronger or more important than the other, but both have to have one thing in common, which is, am I serving my customer right? I talked about persuasion. Persuasion is not just in pre-sales, right? It's persuasion to me is not saying yes to what the prospect wants. Persuasion is you understand what the prospect is asking for. In a way, you should understand more than what they're asking for. You should actually feed them questions that they are not asking.
I agree.
Right? Why? Because as a sales engineer and as an implementation, agency, we know what this prospect should be asking. And sometimes we identify what they're not asking. Right?
That's true.
And the moment you tell them, it's like, hey, why are you not asking me these questions?
Yeah.
Right? They love it.
Oh yeah.
Right? It builds credibility, right? So to me, persuasion on the pre-sales is making sure that they're asking and seeing and understanding the right things to make the decision on which platform to go with. In the implementation side as a solution architect, the persuasion is, it's more of a reality, right? And they may be asking you for your platform to do certain things. Right? The persuasion comes in, is the way they are asking the right way for you to solve it, right? Or is there a better way? Right?
Yeah, I can relate to that because I have been to the both side of the things. I have done the solution architect, creating the whole program and everything, make plan, and making sure that it gets executed correctly as well, and also handle the sales calls as well with the Cass. Cass
Right.
is great. She knows like when I'm going too technical, and she will just chat me in the side ways like, okay, well, you need to calm down a little bit.
Well,
So,
some of the psychology
yeah.
changes, right? As
Yeah.
buyers, we are a lot more tolerant, right? Because when I'm in any buying cycle, right, it's I don't know who I'm gonna commit to yet, right?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of more tolerant. I'm holding back, So but when I become a customer,
Yeah.
right, I'm paying you,
Yeah.
right? I feel more righteous as I should, because I've now made the decision, right? I've picked a horse, right? And I want that horse to be the best horse, the best platform for me. So I think there's a higher level of customers thinking that their way is the right way, because they are paying, and there's righteousness there in the right way, not in a negative way. And I think the persuasion in post-sales to me comes in where you can't tell them you're wrong. You can't tell them that platform is not going to do that, or it doesn't do that. I mean, if it doesn't do that, you should be honest. But I think persuasion comes in is you educate them on, hey, other customers like you are doing it this way. And yes, it's not the way you think in your mind it should be done, but it is a good way.
Yeah.
It solves your problem.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, definitely.
So again, education, enablement, and as agencies, I feel as agencies, you guys may have a little bit more of a position to be consultative, because they're hiring you as consultants.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We just want to be honest with them and make sure whatever they're going forward, it's long term for them. It's not just like a solution.
But it's I feel for customers, it's great to have that trust, right?
Yeah.
Because most agencies they work with, most solution architects they work with, they should have that empathy that this solution architect has been architecting similar solutions for other customers. So being more open to, hey, this is how we think it should be done. What do you think?
Yeah,
right.
That's great. So now we were talking about the e-commerce platforms, and we were just out of the BigSummit now. Like I think it wrapped up yesterday now, right? So what do you think? What do you think about the latest e-commerce trends, and how BigCommerce is kind of trying to move toward those trends? What kind of new things they have been releasing, kind of thing?
Yeah, well, a lot of stuff at Next Big Thing that was announced on Tuesday. So 100 plus new capabilities, new features, new innovation. So a lot to unpack there. I think to me, some of the biggest ahas, for anybody walking out of the BigSummit is really the kind of starting with the Rick Watson and Sharon Gee and Travis session, both around understanding the impact of Omni, right? It's not, it would be great if we were in marketplaces, right? Some of the stats that Rick Watson shared were there is no choice for you to not be on having an omni-channel strategy. There's not a choice for you to not have direct to consumer, right? Or to have your own presence and your own site. And it's the blend, it's the combination of how are you approaching when consumers learn about your product in the marketplace or the social channel, but then they want to come to your storefront to engage with you, right? Because when I'm buying something on Amazon, I'm really looking at who is the ultimate seller, right? I'm just looking at reviews. Is it Prime? Can it arrive?
There's a Prime,
right? It's like the filtering criteria is very different, right? But if I like the product, I'll tell you, simple human, right? Since I'm a gadgety person, right? A couple of years ago, I bought a trash can that was voice activated. And, my wife still makes fun of it. My kids make fun of it. But, you say open can and it opens up and you can throw things in it. But it's worked great. They've had great customer service. It was expensive. Like I forget, paying like $100+ for a trash can was kind of crazy. But that's how I learned about this brand. And now I go and buy from their website, right? Because I have an affinity for that brand, right? So that's a very common example of, you need to have your strategy. And I think the combination of BigCommerce and Feedonomics, right, gives you that full breadth of that journey, to control that journey and to optimize that journey. And I think, in that session, it became more apparent. Even though we've been saying BigCommerce and Feedonomics go together, and it's the right strategy, but I think there was a lot of panelists and a lot of presenters that kind of honed in and validated, right, that strategy from customer standpoint, right?
Yeah.
And Rick Watson, of course, from an industry thought leader standpoint. So that was amazing. I think the other one that I hope a lot of people walked away from was Catalyst is not just a developer utility, a facilitator to build headless, but when Nathan Booker talked about and did the demo of, he's in control panel and he goes to the channel manager section and he can click on a button to spin up a storefront with Stencil, and then he can click on a button to spin up a storefront with Catalyst.
Yeah.
Right? And I know I was talking to a few other agencies, and to me that was like the big aha for people to say, oh wow, like headless historically had this negative perception of very expensive, takes too long to implement. It may not be for us because we're too small or we're too simple. And I think walking out of the BigSummit, if anybody was, kind of watching that demo and listening to how we were presenting, it should be, all of those negative perceptions should be gone, right?
Yeah, I agree.
It's what is your use case? Is performance important to you? Is speed important to you? Is speed of implementation important to you, right? Those are the questions you should be asking to know if you want to go headless versus, or catalyst versus non-catalyst. But I thought that was very empowering to see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also looking forward. I mean, we launched the first Catalyst site on BigCommerce.
You guys are spearheading, man.
Right?
I'm so proud to see the, again, kind of going back to our journey together, right? I think it's very rewarding for me to see how, when you re-entered the e-commerce ecosystem and BigCommerce ecosystem, right, as an independent agency, you've kind of looked at where the opportunities are. Like you guys have excelled in B2B, right? And you've been doing B2B for a while, and I know you've talked to Lance and others, and we see Cronix all over, right, in thought leadership on B2B, and that's exactly what we want from agencies. And then very quickly you identified that, hey, this whole Catalyst thing, BigCommerce is heading in, and you were the first one to raise the hand saying, we're going to do some Catalyst implementations. And so I think I love that pioneering the cause. But so
Thank you.
Talk about Catalyst. I want to hear from you about
Catalyst. I really enjoyed Catalyst. Like when we developed the Amadero on the Catalyst, the first iteration, we were working very closely with the Catalyst team to make sure, whatever we needed, they're able to help us. And we then released a Strappy open source plugin as well. So but recently we launched this with the MakeSwift team, so we worked pretty closely with the Lindsay, Bass, and other MakeSwift team, and they were great. They really helped us to make sure the first iteration goes pretty well. So what I like, some of the other customers that we work with BigCommerce, sometimes they face a challenge like, okay, how to edit the blog themselves. They use Shogun, some of the third-party apps, which it has pros and cons and everything. They want everything. People want native, right? So I think the MakeSwift edition is very exciting. I can see some of the merchants that we work with, and they are pretty looking forward to it. Like they can simply drag and drop and build the pages themselves. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, I mean we have that on on Amadero, the MakeSwift and Catalyst, and I think this is something I'm very excited about, because especially for, there's definitely consideration depending upon the requirements, but if a client is pretty enterprise and they're looking for pretty lot of content types and everything, I think the Catalyst is definitely a great move for sure. And how much customization ability it can give you, and also you're still, and especially another aspect which I liked a lot, that you can keep your front end, the back end server components kind of in the same application, which is great. Otherwise, if you're in a Stencil, you are basically having some kind of AJAX call to the third party server or something. So yeah, I really loved working with the Catalyst, especially on a jewelry client, and it was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
Look, any technology is not for everyone, right? And I think that's kind of the rewarding role you and our team gets to play in it, right? It's we get to understand where the drive to re-platform, where the drive to use new technologies coming from, like what's driving that, right? Is it that they are struggling with current platform? Is it that they're looking for new and cutting edge, right? And I think based on that, it's our superpowers to guide them in the right step, right journey. But it's not for everyone. It's not for everyone right now. Like I feel like every innovation, right? Mm-hmm. You have to look at technology as a journey, right? Any technology that we use, right? When iWatch first came out, when iPhones first came out, it didn't do everything that it does today.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely,
right? Yeah. But we all bought into it,
yeah,
because it did enough, and we anticipated that if it's doing this much right now, what would it do in a year, mm-hmm. right? Yeah. And a year after that, and a year after that, and there are many technologies that didn't innovate, and they went away. Right?
I agree.
We used to pay extra for GPS devices on our cars, and now we just use iPhone, right? Or the car's CarPlay has that, right? So I think it's that understanding of you're making a decision for the future, right? So yes, I can do blogs right now, but how important is that mm-hmm. in that decision? And do I trust that there will be a path down the road for mm-hmm. me to host these blogs or manage these blogs? And are there workarounds right now that can still get me onto this new technology, right? So I think, it's a journey that we have to educate prospects, on, and I think we have to instill the trust, right? That the pros and cons of not having this feature, not having that feature is, all of those things are important to understand, but they should not prevent you from achieving what you can achieve, right? The big picture, right? The forest from the trees is our job, right? To educate that with prospects. But it's innovation. Every innovation is a journey. Yeah. And I think, kudos to you guys, to Cronix, to, trusting in the platform, believing in that journey, and leading the way, right? Because somebody has to start doing the implementations, knowing that not everything is figured out, and then also I'm sure our Make Swift team would validate this, having the empathy and understanding and collaboration to help our teams improve and enhance and innovate, right? Yeah. Because Make Swift team has not been working, for the last 10 years with e-commerce agencies, right? This is a new world for them too.
I agree.
Being part of BigCommerce is a new world for them too. So how are we, because on one angle we can say, oh, you don't do this, it's not a good platform, right?
Yeah.
Or we can say that's great, like what e-commerce needs is da 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 da, and then and they are so open and so smart and so committed to the cause that there's no doubt that they'll figure it out.
Yeah, I really enjoyed working with Lindsay and the team, and they were very open to the feedback and suggestions, and any kind of questions we had, they immediately helped us with those kind of stuff. So I really appreciate that. Before we wrap up, I would like to basically mention, like, if someone wants to check the BigCommerce latest updates, they can go to bigcommerce.com, and then they have the full releases information over there. But if someone wants to contact you, how they should reach out to you, and that's one aspect. The another is if you want to tell us, like, when you are planning to release your book or something, any kind of dates you have planned yet.
I love this affirmation, right? So the book started by me just telling people that I'm writing a book, and I think it was, even just saying that was very scary and daunting. And again, one of my mentors kind of coached me, saying, just start saying it, and universe will make this a reality. Right? So the intention of the book, I'm in the final red line edits. My hope and plan is to have the book out by Christmas this year, so it's getting pretty close. And I think the podcasts are a way for me to create some energy around it, and honestly, like, a lot of what I'm learning through the podcast is influencing the book as well. So look out for that. That would be a fun accomplishment in my career to have that out. But I'm very accessible on LinkedIn. I don't do any other social channels. My wife and kids send me Instagram stuff, and I can't often watch it because I don't have those apps. But LinkedIn is where, I kind of commit my social energy into. So for anybody that wants to reach out, learn about BigCommerce, you're right, bigcommerce.com. Latest innovations is at the next big thing. And also from sales engineering. So outside of e-commerce, if there is anybody that has ever thought about what sales engineering is, or could I ever be a sales engineer, right? I love having those conversations because it is not for everyone, but if you're thinking about it,
yeah, probably
maybe worth, exploring it.
Yeah.
And there's especially these days, there's so many resources available out there to help you get into the profession. So yeah, reach out for any of those topics that I can support in.
Yeah, really. Well, you have been always very kind, helping. I can see some of the the founders I talked to, and they were definitely saying great things about you as well, like how you help them. And yeah, great. Well, thank you for coming here and interviewing with us, and really appreciate it. Thank you, Sachin.
Thanks for having me.